What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live are going to be talking about 20 items that will disappear from existence once SHTF happens, or really any long-term national emergency. And we're actually going to be doing a little bit of reference from survivors of Sarajevo in Serbia and some of the items that they witnessed and some of the points that they kind of put out there. So this is actually taken from real world situations, not just come up with a list of things that we think might happen. One of the things, though, that really kind of brings that in is the Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse, written about actual events that happened in Argentina back in 2001. What was crazy is they experienced a number of these collapses, and they seem to be now on the right track. But this is a great book, and written by Firewood, and there's a link down below in the description that'll take you right to that book. A lot of people buy this book. It will change the way you kind of think about prepping, about SHTF, and all those kind of things, and some ways to really get through it. But today we're just really going to focus on just those 20 items. Now, are there more? Sure, it's unlimited, the number of items that you could come up with, but these are some priority items. I will say that if there is some downturns, if there's some things that are coming that are indicators toward some kind of catastrophe, this is a great list to go down, kind of say, okay, I want to make sure that I have these items. Or if you're a seasoned prepper coming in and looking at some of these items, a lot of these are just typical. They're items that we talk about, but having a list is going to help, especially if something catastrophic happens. You know, something can happen in just a moment, just like Helene. That was something that those people had no idea would happen. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation. So we're going to go through the list. A lot of times I'll have a bunch of props and we're talking about things. I just didn't put it together today. But another thing, and this is very important, is fire. And having the ability to create fire. It'll boil your water, cook your food, give you light, give you warmth. It can keep predators at bay. It just builds morale. And having a fire kit is really a basis for putting together a survival setup or prepping. You need to be able to create fire. These are from Exotac. They make some of the best fire starters on the market, and they're down in Winder, Georgia. And you get 20% off using Suits20 with the link down below. And also check out our website at suitsgear.com. A lot of great things going on. In fact, we've got a giveaway going on right now for the month of May. And we try to have monthly giveaways, newsletters, those kind of things, a lot of merch, stuff like that. Just fun stuff. So now to get to this list, and what we'll do is if you have any questions, and they don't necessarily have to be specific about what we're talking about, but they do need to be survival related. And we'll take a break in a few minutes and we'll take some of those questions. You can leave those at any time. Sarah Mack's over on the computer and she's monitoring. So she knows she'll bring those to me when we stop. All right, number one. Now, these aren't necessarily in order. In fact, it's kind of a random of 20, some things that are at the, actually, I'll throw the bottom up to number 2. But these are things that are going to just go. They're going to go. And again, this is from the experiences that happened in Sarajevo specifically, but you can imagine this would happen in any country or any area that has a loss and where services are taken away. But before we get started, one of the things that is important is you can build up a stockpile. You can build the things up. You can build your prepper pantry. You can have the supplies you need, and you can get into that prepping situation. The one thing that I've been really honing in on, though, guys, is you can't prepare for total collapse. You can have everything under the sun, and still you can't really prepare. But what it does do is it gets you to a better place. It just buys you time. So one of the things about prepping, it's not an end all, but it buys you time. And you're able to get through a tough situation, and maybe there could be a new normal, maybe things are changing, maybe some things are starting to settle down, and it'll get you to that point. That's the big thing about prepping. But number 2, and this is very important, and this was recommended actually by the people in Sarajevo, is to first off, is that if something does happen, locate yourself near a renewable food source, a place that maybe out in agriculture where you can get some food, places that are growing food, but also locating yourself near a well or a spring or something that already has purified water. That is going to be like the Garden of Eden. I mean, you're going to be right there where there's water, where there's food, and that is going to be really an ideal location. While a lot of things can be going on, especially in an urban area or suburban area where there's a lot of people, relocating out of those areas can be very vital to your survival, not including a lot of times, like for here, we could possibly have civil unrest. And so, getting yourself in a good location to where water is accessible and you have some way to get food if you need it, which you will need it because we all need food. So that's an important part, is to get yourself in a good spot. And guys, what happened in Helene, those people, their homes were wiped out, and water was definitely one of those things that became a real issue with drinking water. Now, as far as utilities go, hands down, they said that really electricity is the one to lose. If you lost any other utility, that was the one. The big thing is you don't want to lose water. If you have cell service, that's great. I mean, we want to have cell service, but that electricity, you can live without electricity. I know that's a shocker for a lot of people, but honestly, when the power goes out, typically, except for our freezers, in our refrigerators, that's the one thing that I get really kind of a little bit concerned about, is that, man, we could live without power, and people have for the past 6,000 years. So that is one thing. Don't get too freaked out. Now, because of modern conveniences and because of the things and the gadgets we have, and of course, lighting is important, but those things, electricity becomes like the focal point. But honestly, electricity is not vital all the time to survival. Now, maybe if you have extreme cold and you need a heat, but you should have alternate heat sources. And you can come up with alternate heat sources. Okay, so on the list is, and we saw this during COVID, is toilet paper. There's not really a good substitute for toilet paper. It is what it is. Yes, you can have wet wipes, and those are a great substitute, but that's a lot more to store up a lot of wet wipes when you can store up toilet paper that's considerably less expensive. And two, it doesn't dry out over time. It's already dry. So toilet paper, we saw that during COVID. Why? It was hilarious. It was like all of a sudden the stores just ran out of toilet paper. But even in Sarajevo, that was a big deal, was toilet paper. And toilet paper actually became very sought after, and people would pay and barter and trade for toilet paper. And also paper towels and, your napkins, things like that. Those are also something that a lot of people are going to be looking for because, we get used to keeping ourselves clean, and that's important. Number two is bottled water. Now, bottled water, we try to keep some bottled water. It'll only last for so long, but having bottled water and people wanting it, the one thing is with water sources is, if like in France and Portugal, not France, but Spain and Portugal just recently, when they had their national power outage, the water was off. They didn't have access to water. And that is vital. 3 days without water, that's all you can live, or your body starts to just cramp up, and you become dehydrated. You've got to have water. So go ahead and make sure that you have water. And if a situation happens, it will disappear. People are going to go in and just wipe out the water sections. And so having some water put back is going to be vital, and water filters, even portable, like Katadyn Hiker Pros, things like that. Just having some water filters, being able to get through until obviously you can relocate, or you can locate some kind of water source, and hopefully one will open up in some way. It was really funny during Moscow back in World War II, when the Germans were attacking St. Petersburg, and some of them, they surrounded it. And those people, I mean, they were completely without any assistance. In fact, they were trapped with the limited supplies that they had. And it was a really vital situation. And so Even the birds, that was one thing that was a delicacy, is they wiped out the bird population around Moscow and St. Petersburg, actually, and began to, find whatever food source they could find. A lot of times it's one thing, and that's next is your food. But, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go hunting, I'm going to do this. Listen, during the Great Depression, game animals were almost completely wiped out because people were going out and hunting to supplement their food. So that is one thing, to not necessarily just count on that. Even creeks and streams that have fish can just be completely wiped out, overfished. And when you have a lot of people out there that haven't fished in years, but they've got the fishing equipment, they're going to go out there and wipe it out. So canned food is one thing that we are very heavy on. And speaking of heavy, it is heavy. But canned food is one of those things that we depend on, mainly because it lasts for so long. It'll last for 100 years. It'll say best by date, but because of the heat processes and the sanitary conditions that they do produce for canned food, it will last for a long time. You can watch videos on YouTube all the time about people opening up military surplus cans from World War I or World War II. And while the taste isn't that great, and these are just metal cans without liners, which the canned food today has liners, so you don't get that metallic taste as much. But it's one of the things that I think is very important, and one thing that will dry up very fast. Canned food will just disappear off the shelves because it is food stable. It's stable, and it's also already cooked. When you have it, you can heat it up. You can eat it. One tip, and this came from Sarajevo, was to have a lot of canned gravy. Now, I hadn't really thought about this. Canned gravy, what are you going to do with that? But when there's limited food sources, and you don't know what you're going to get, sometimes it's a dried out piece of bread. Sometimes it could be just some dried meat or whatever. And this will allow you to put gravy on it and make it more palatable. So gravy is one of those that's a pro tip from Sarajevo. But that's one thing that I'm actually going to try to do that. But, again, with canned food, especially canned food that you can just open and eat directly and it still tastes decent. That is one thing that's going to be a convenience. One of the things about a grid down situation, even if it's limited, like when we had Helene, again, our power was out for about a week, is the amount of work that has to be done. There is a lot of work involved. And what this does, it burns off a lot of calories. The things that were so convenient before, are now become a chore. And you're going to cook a meal, you got to prepare for it. Maybe you got to get your gas grill out, you got to get your Coleman stove out, you got to get the fuel prepared, you got to get everything ready. And it's a lot of work, setting up generators, lights, those kind of things. So there is a lot of work. And then you have possible security issues where you want to make sure that things are secure and that there aren't people out there trying to take your stuff. So being able to eat and to stay, have the carbs to be able, and the calories to be able to keep you going, even in a rough situation, is going to be vital. So for us, a lot of people buy MREs, a lot of people buy Mountain. Great options, and they're great supplements. They're great items to have back up, and you can kind of have those when you want. But and then, like for us, we went to the Mormon cannery a few years ago and got a huge supply of food, and it's long term, but it takes a lot of work to get in there and to make that happen. And if you have gardens, which is definitely something that is very desirable, is you've got to be able to process what you have. You got to be able to eat and pick it and keep it up. And so again, a lot of work is involved in any SHTF situation. Number 4 is generators. Now, we've seen this before. You have some kind of storm coming or whatever, generators they just go. I mean, really quickly. If you have a real serious SHTF situation, those generators are going to be gone even faster. And it's a very important thing to have generators just to keep your freezer and refrigerator going, at least until you can eat what's in it. And so that's a big thing. During and I keep bringing up Helene because it's kind of fresh on my mind. But with Helene, we had generators, we had gas generators, we also had a solar generators, and that's a big plus. But the thing about solar is that's all you have is you're dependent on the sun. And for us, we are right now, we have a sunny afternoon, but it's been raining for the past week. And that means no power. Again, you can get by without power pretty much, but having power is a convenience, but it also helps to get you through certain things, especially keeping your food cold. That's a pretty big deal. But solar generators and solar panels are also going to go. I mean, people are going to buy them up because they want to have some way to have some power. Now, the downside to generators specifically, especially if you have a gas generator or diesel generator, is that it will make noise. And that noise, a lot of times, unless it's one of the quiet inverters, it's going to just rattle. And In fact, somebody was running a generator the week we lost power 24/7. It was a big generator, and they were running 10 gallons of gas a day because I talked to the guy. And, so that is number two is the fuel. So you've got to have gasoline or propane or whatever you need to keep that generator going. Again, if you have a solar generator, you're going to have to depend on the sun. Everything has dependence. And so, you just have to choose. Now, for us, to me, it was a very good system is to have the electric or gas generator and the solar generator so we could feed off each other. So we could charge up our solar with our gas power generator. And that way we kept things going. But it was really a beautiful balance. And so, but it took, again, a lot of work. We had to take the panels out. We had to make sure the gas was full. I had to go out there and start it. I had to mess with it. And if you had any kind of issues with it, you've got to be able to fix it. So there is a lot to keeping all this stuff together. Okay, number 5. And after this one, we'll go to a few questions. We're going to kind of take a couple of breaks. But number 5 is seasoned firewood. Now, you can have, there's trees, like we have a lot of trees on our property. And that's great. But really, wood needs to sit for 6 to 12 months to really get it fully seasoned for you to use it effectively in your stove. If you have a wood stove or a fireplace and you want to have some way to generate heat. But obviously, you can cook with firewood if you want. The big problem with cooking with firewood is that it does put off a lot of carbon monoxide or the smoke. And it can definitely give you some health problems if you're around an open fire cooking a lot. And so having that option, though, is still going to be vital because you want to be able to eat and you want to be able to cook especially if you're harvesting some kind of game or doing something, you want to be able to cook, and it just makes life a little better. But the seasoned firewood is very important. One thing that we do is we store propane. And propane is very, in fact, I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but propane is definitely one of those things that's very stable. One of the problems with gasoline is that it's very volatile. And so it's difficult to store and it's dangerous to store. So propane makes it much safer. So for us, we kind of lean heavily toward that propane thought. Okay, if we have a couple of questions, we're going to take them.
Nick Cowart says, howdy from Florida. Condo prohibits storing any propane on property. Can you recommend safe alternatives for me to research? Main goal is to buy a small unit for me to cook.
Butane is also a great option. We have a couple of butane little stoves. They're kind of like Coleman stoves. And we can set it up, and it has a canister, but it's a little bit different. It's just more of an aerosol looking canister. So I don't know if they prohibit butane, but that would be an alternative. One thing that we do, though, is we have an off-site storage unit. Me and a buddy of mine, who's in our prepper group, and we call it our survival cache. And we keep survival items in that in case for some reason we can't make it back home. And it gives us, again, it just buys us a little time with the items that we have in there. Maybe that's a good place. And we get one of the small units, so it's not really that expensive. I think it's like $50 a month because we pay $600 a year. So it's there. We know it's there. We go in and check it every once in a while, make sure that we change things out or maybe add a few things. And it just gives us an extra place to be able to hold things. So if you have a storage unit close by, it might be something for you to look into. But yeah, the problem is with apartments, that definitely limits your space. And also if you're hauling a bunch of stuff in, people will notice. And so it kind of makes you a little bit of a target, and then of course with different regulations, but I understand why they wouldn't want propane in there. But on the other hand, propane is very stable. And so But that's really, for me, butane or thinking about an off-site place for your propane.
Raphael Guez says, "Hi Don, I'm Raphael from Israel. As you know, we are at war, and unfortunately for stupid reasons, most of the citizens here can't carry a gun. What can we do as most of the terrorist attack are in midday?"
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially when you have an enemy that's out just to kill. Really, without a firearm, I mean, that really does limit you. Obviously, a knife is better than nothing. One thing that I tell people, especially in areas that for personal self-defense, is a good flashlight. A good flashlight, one that you can actually reach in your pocket, and it's in your pocket and it's small enough, but with your hand you have an area that comes out. Now this is just an arc failed ultra. It's a great light. If I didn't have a firearm with me, I would want one with a crenulated bezel because it gives it a little bit more bite. And you can use this as a non-lethal option. And you can knock somebody out with it if you have to. It's a force multiplier. Not sure if you guys can have like pepper spray or CS. That would be a good option as well, at least to stop something like a knife attack or something. But yeah, your options unfortunately are very limited, especially when sometimes the other side might even have full auto. I think one of the things that's very important, though, is to have a lot of situational awareness, is to know what's going on around you, be aware of it. Don't get on your phone and sit around, but kind of when you're in public areas, make sure you're in a good, safe area if you're going to get on your phone and in an area where somebody can't come up on you. But yeah, I think one of the problems over there is you've got, completely unregistered firearms that could come across the border, or you have knife attacks or bomb attacks that happen. So I thought that Israel had loosened up some of their gun control at some point. I know at the initial part, and I think that was probably smart. I just can't imagine people being willing, not saying, hey, we've got to be able to protect ourselves and our families after what happened. So, but yeah, a good flashlight, pepper spray, a knife if you can carry that, and then work hard to have some kind of to get the legislation changed where you guys can carry, because that is really it really creates an entire. That's the thing about the U.S. is the more people that are carrying, the more crime drops, and it gives them the ability. And honestly, it takes some of the burden off of law enforcement. So my prayers go to you.
God's Weird Warrior says, "We are experiencing heat waves in Texas. We need to prep for this type of weather-related storm. What would you use to create a car or truck kit for the heat?"
Yeah, that's a tough one. Water for sure. One thing that they used to do years ago when it was really hot is they would take sheets, and you could probably do this in your car with a towel, but they would hang sheets over an open window, and as the breeze came in, that evaporation would actually cool the room. May not be like your HVAC unit, but it definitely could get it down to a more survivable temperature. And so possibly in a car, same thing, is you could probably put some kind of cloth, especially if you're sitting still. If you're moving and you've got wind coming, just having the wind move around, the breeze come around is going to be a big plus. But having plenty of water, make sure you keep some water in your trunk. Yes, it'll get hot, but it'll be water. And two, yeah, salt. Have some salt, because that's one thing that depletes, or something with high electrolytes. But one thing that we do is we'll have water, like when we go to the range in the middle of the summer, because we go whenever, and it's hot, and we'll take cloths, and we have actually something we can put on our back of our neck, or these little patches. You can put a patch on the back of your neck that actually is like moisturized. And so what it does is it actually will help cool your body temperature down. What we used to do was we'd take training classes for combat training classes, and we would take rags, put them in a cooler, wring them out, and then put them around our neck. That was a big plus. It really cools things down. You can even put one on the top of your head if you start getting overheated, and make sure you have some kind of ball cap. That's the things I could think about. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll come back to some more questions in a few minutes because we have a big list and we want to get through them. Number 6 is oil lamps. Lamp oil, wicks, having some stuff where you can actually, have light. Light's going to be important, especially at night. You want to have some light, definitely flashlights, but in a long-term situation, having oil and oil lamps will kind of give you a nice broad area. But on the other hand, the transverse of that using technology is lanterns, even battery-powered lanterns or lanterns with that are rechargeable. We have a number. In fact, my wife likes to put them up on the shelves, these lanterns, and they're beautiful and they're just battery-powered. And they just light up and it gives it, an accent lighting. But having lanterns and having oil or battery powered or propane, powered, Coleman lanterns have been around for a long time and they have a lot of different choices for those. So wicks, fuel, the lanterns themselves, and of course, with the rechargeable ones, that makes it easier. You can a lot of times hook that up to a solar charger and keep things charged. Number 7 is propane, but also Coleman fuel. Coleman fuel is a great resource. Butane, like we talked about with the question earlier, this gives you a lot of options for cooking. For us, a lot of people have grills. Grilling is so simple. It does put out a lot of smell, a lot of really, aroma for people that may be hungry, but it gives you a way to be able to cook. But it also gives you other options for lighting and for a generator or for whatever. The propane is a great source, but again, Coleman fuel, another one that's been around for a long time and fairly stable. They're not quite as volatile as gasoline. And then, of course, butane, and they come in like aerosol cans. It's kind of funny. You just top it and you can pop it into a stove. And you can do some cooking and you can cook right there on your countertop. So just some different options, but fuels are going to be really vital. And gasoline obviously is going to be a big one. And it was one of the things that happened when Helene hit is that the gas stations just became overrun. But the thing is the areas with a power outage, there were areas right near that had gasoline power, restaurants open and all that. So while it was tough being without power for a week, we had sources to where we could go and get some relief. And that was a big plus. If we had not had that, things would have been a lot different. So it gave us some options that way. Okay, so containers for water. Now, we talked about water, but having a way to carry water. Let's say that you're near a water source that's a well or your neighbor's well or a friend of yours, or you have a well or you have a spring and you want to get water, or there's a place that is offering water where you have to go get it. You're going to want to have some kind of containers. And that's one of the things that's going to get gone in a hurry. And you want to make sure that it's water safe. That's very important, drinkable. But a lot of times people just take those buckets, like you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, they have the buckets, but you can get food grade buckets and you can go to bakeries and places like that, even grocery stores that have delis. And a lot of times the buckets just pile up and they'll give you the buckets. And so having buckets, in fact, we've done that quite a bit, and there's different container sizes, but what I really like is the 5-gallon bucket with a handle. So I can carry it, put a lid on it. I've got water, I can carry that. But that's also good as far as water containers for cleaning, for mopping your floor, keeping things clean. Because it's going to be important to make sure you keep your areas clean, to keep down any kind of disease or infection spreading. And so keeping things clean is going to be vital. Plus, if you have containers and you want to use your toilet, you can go to the back of the toilet and you can pour in water. Yeah, you've got toilet paper, but going out in the woods can be done. But having a toilet where you can just pour water that you don't really feel like you need to drink, maybe it's rainwater. You can have those buckets, you can fill up with rainwater. When somebody goes to the bathroom, you can walk up, take the lid off, pour the water down, and the toilet will flush. So it doesn't have to have water to flush. So having different ways to be able to carry water. Now, one thing that, in fact, I did a video about this a while back was actually a nice big pot for boiling water. And it was a big pot. And so you can put water in it, and you can actually make stews. You can do a lot of things with a big pot. And a lot of times people don't have those. But when you go to big restaurants, they'll have these huge pots with handles on the side, and they bring them up. Maybe they have sauce in them or do different things. And so having a way to be able to cook, and you may be cooking for a decent sized group of people. And so it gives you a bigger option instead of having a little pan. Then you got to get that pan, you got to get another one and another one. Just gives you a way to get all that done at one time. So water containers, plastic, buckets, whatever, and then having some kind of metal containers for cooking. So, and you can cook outside on a fire. You can get one of those, like a, oh, for crying out loud, just one of these pots that you can put on a fire and sit there, and cast iron. Couldn't think of it. Cast iron, and even have the handles, and you can put them over the fire. And so just having some containers to be able to take things, not just water, but a lot of different uses. Aluminum foil. And it's funny, my grandparents, they went through the Great Depression. My grandmother saved aluminum foil. There was a drawer, and you'd open it up, and you're like, why in the world does she have aluminum foil in here? And it was all folded neatly, and it was really nice. And the one thing about aluminum foil is it's reusable. So you can use it, then you can clean it, and then you can use it again. And aluminum foil is probably not as sturdy as tin foil, but aluminum foil is going to be, and that's what you're seeing. It's a great option to have some aluminum foil put back, and then you can reuse it. There's so many different things you can do with aluminum foil. In fact, I did a video about a lot of different survival uses for aluminum foil, not just being able to use it for cooking purposes. But check that out. But aluminum foil, that's going to get gone in a hurry. More than, if you're going in and you're seeing, saran wrap or clingy or cling wrap or whatever, pick up the aluminum foil because it is reusable. And that's really the big thing. Garbage bags. This is number 10, garbage bags. And guys, I've been a big proponent of heavy meal contractors bags. I think everybody should have them in their go bag. There's so many uses for it. It can be used as a mat. It can be used as shelter. It can be used as a rain poncho. It can be used to carry things. That thick, heavy meal, though, is what you want. You don't want the little, Glad bags and just little trash bags, thin. Now, if that's what you have, you're going to use those as well. But the heavy meal trash bags, they're fairly inexpensive. I mean, you get a box of them for like $42, and they're a lot more expensive actually than just your cheap bags, but they're reusable and they're great. And again, they're made for going out and picking up debris off a construction site. So they're really tough, and it gives you just a lot of options. But just trash bags in general are going to be important. One thing we do, of course, and most people do, is we have one of these. It's actually this bag, and it's stylized just like a woman in a dress, like an old timey 1800s. And in that, you take your Walmart bags or the little plastic bags you get at the grocery, and we stuff them in there. And so it's this big thing of all these bags. And anytime we need one of these trash bags or these little kind of bags, we can just reach up there and grab one because we're always using them. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be really important, is to have things that you're going to use a lot for different purposes, and that it's going to be very desirable to have those. So don't throw them all away. Make sure you have some stored back because you could definitely use it. Okay, let's see. Where are we? We're at number 11. We're at slow burning candles. Slow burning candles. Now you have your lamp oil and all that, but there are some candles out there that'll burn 24 hours straight. I mean, they just are 10-hour candles, different times according to the size of the candle. But having some slow burning candles just gives you another option. The one thing about candles and oil, lamp oil, is that if it gets knocked over, it can be flammable. It can cause a problem. But having a way to be able to have some light when you need it, just some low light, if that's all you need, and not just in pitch black darkness. So candles are going to be ones to go quickly, but slow burning candles are the ones that you really want to kind of focus on. We have all kind of candles at the house, and we burn them, and they're in the glass jars, Yankee candle and all that stuff. And they smell really good, but it's really nice to have some kind of lighting, especially when the power is down. Okay, number 12, which is right behind it, is matches. and matches and matches. You want to have a lot of matches, and they're very inexpensive. And it's harder to find the strike anywhere matches that you used to could find all the time, but having matches are going to be important, and you're not going to have enough. It's going to be one of those things that's just going to run out over time. And so making sure that you have those matches, you know, it was funny in the book, Alas Babylon, which I highly recommend that book. It's a post-apocalyptic type book. But one of the things that they did, he said, was at the end, there was one thing where he was getting ready to light something. He goes, "This is the last match." And they lit it, and they did what they were doing. And then they were like, that was it. No more matches. So you want to have matches. Now, Bic lighters, for sure. Bic lighters are great. I buy them by the 4-pack or 5-pack, and I just stick them away, and, you know, they're great. But sooner or later, the fuel's going to run out. And just like with your matches, but your matches are a lot cheaper. But having not only matches, but your fire kit, and just like we talked about with have a ferro rod, these things can give 10,000 strikes. So for long term, having a good fire kit with ferro rods, or, you know, I have lifeboat matches in one of these. Lifeboat matches are great. They're more expensive, but you can even put them in water and they burn for a long time. So matches to me, but they're more expensive. And so, you know, I can stock up on a ton of just standard matches with boxes. But I did buy some of these lifeboat matches at Home Depot. I was in the area where they sell their grills, and I just looked up. There was a case of these matches, and it was fairly inexpensive. When you're trying to buy lifeboat matches, or they call them waterproof matches, when you buy them, typically it's in survival type stores, and typically they're fairly expensive. So that's just a good source. But I haven't seen them since, but just to let you know, I found some there. But again, fire is vital. Fire is vital. And, you know, having a fire kit, and I know we just talked about it with the Exotag, but it will boil your water. It'll purify your water. That's going to be a big deal. Even if you filter your water through grass, charcoal, sand, and rocks, and you do the primitive filter system, it still needs to be boiled because it can have bacteria and different contaminants in it that are unseen. So you're going to need to boil your water. And again, that's why you need a big, nice pot to be able to pour your water in, boil it, make it drinkable, make it potable. And it's just going to be important. But also, it will cook your food, the fire. The cook, you know, you put your food over the fire, you can cook it. It will give you warmth. And that's a big deal, especially when it gets super cold. And then again, it will give you light. So having a fire kit, again, is just one of those things that we have them all over because fire is primal. This is something that man had to have from the beginning. And so having a fire kit, and again, Exotag, there's a link down below, but that's not the reason for me talking about it. But having a fire kit and putting it in a small little pouch. So, you know, these are my fire tools, and having redundancy, not just matches, because that bag can get soaked, you get wet, and then your matches are no good. Having your ferro rod, having your lighter, having your tinder, those kind of things. So anything like that is going to disappear very quickly because especially if there's no power, that is going to be, your electricity is power. It's convenient power. It's convenient fire. I can turn on my heater. I can turn on the stove. I can turn on all these different things. But if I don't have that, or I'm on natural gas, which could also be disrupted, it's going to limit myself. Okay, let's see. Number 13 is personal hygiene. And this is very important because personal hygiene, you need to stay clean. If you're dirty, and you can pick up diseases, you can pick up different bacterias, especially if, you know, even your house, and really having bleach and those kind of things to clean are going to be important. A lot of times during these times, a pandemic or some kind of something will flow through. And a lot of times because we don't have the means to take care of it, you know, you can die from it. A small cut you can die from if infection sets in, and then you don't have antibiotics. So keeping yourself clean, keeping yourself in good shape, feminine hygiene products are vital. And then just having ways to maybe brush your teeth, maybe just some soap, having bar soap. I like to have bar soap. I do have the shower gels and things like that, but the bar soap lasts longer, and I just like to have it, and you can really scrub and get yourself clean. So that's just one of my personal preferences. But all your personal hygiene stuff, keeping your teeth brushed as much as possible. Even if you don't have toothpaste, use baking soda. Baby diapers. If you have infants or small children, the babies that are still in diapers, you're going to want to have some kind of baby diaper. And my phone, sorry, it was just buzzing one after the other. But having bottles, having formula, having the things that you need for babies, reusable or diapers, the old cloth diapers. That could be something that would be really come in handy. And of course, we've done away with those pretty much, but people still use them, so they're still available. Number 15, and after we do this, we'll go to a couple more questions. Number 15 is batteries. Batteries. For me, I do have a lot of rechargeable devices, rechargeable flashlights, rechargeable radios, rechargeable whatever. And that's great. But a standard battery typically lasts longer. Just a standard AA battery, especially if you get a good quality Duracell but those batteries they're going to dry up in a big hurry. And so whatever your devices are, I have a lot of scopes that need the little disc batteries, the 2032 batteries. So I want to make sure I have some for that. I want to have some for my flashlights. And I like to have some flashlights that are like AA, just AA batteries. And that way, in case for some reason I can't charge my devices, I have some other options, and batteries will be one of the big ones to go. You can go and see them. I mean, they got a bunch of batteries, CR123s. If you're using those things they'll last for 10 years. So putting that a shelf life, and some of the other batteries, having batteries put back, definitely something that's going to get wiped out. Okay, I got a question. We'll try to answer.
Nira Ramadari asks, are 9mm PCCs a good or bad idea for SHTF?
There's a lot of debate on that. A lot of debate. One thing that I think with a handgun, you've got limited range. Yeah, you can shoot out to 100 yards, but it's going to be if you put that thing into a small little PCC, little pistol caliber carbine, you are going to extend your range. You're going to extend your accuracy. You're going to give yourself typically more stable platform. It's kind of like this. If I have a small little handgun, which I do, I carry a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. I love it. It's in 380 of all things, but it's so easy to carry. If I'm going out to dinner, maybe, and I feel like I can dress that way, I like to carry something a little larger. If I'm going out, I like to have something with a little more grip to it. I find that, and this is just physics, but a small little handgun, I want to think if I ever really had to use it, what would I feel the most comfortable with? And really it would be a full-size handgun. So I want to come back from that. If I ever had to get myself in a self-defense situation, I want something that I know I can put rounds on target. So with that being said, having a pistol caliber carbine gives you much more advantage over a handgun. And typically, you can brace it so you can get better accuracy. And a lot of times you'll already have an extended capacity magazine. But the controversy is, well, why not have an AR-15 that's a pistol, where it's really short? Then you have 223, you got more power, you got more distance, you got all those things. But the big problem is a backstop. With a 9mm, it's only going to go so far. With a 223, you're going to go a heck of a lot more distance. I mean, 223 will reach out to 600 yards, and still stay stable. So having something with a little less oomph for backstop, I see a big appeal with a 9mm PCC, and for your truck gun. But what I do like is to have another option that if I do need to reach out to greater ranges, I do have that ability as well with a rifle caliber. Because again, you're not going to hit targets with a PCC at 600 yards, but you can with an AR-15. So, and then of course 308, you even have more capability.
Stephen M. asked question: thoughts on having a root cellar away from the house or just a cold room in the basement of your home?
I think that's beautiful. I think it's really smart. And my grandfather had one. He had potatoes in it, and he would put straw on top, and those things would last forever. And you can put other items in there that keep things cooler. A root cellar is definitely something that is something that was used for many generations, and we've kind of just gotten away from it because of modern conveniences. But yes, a root cellar to me would be huge. Having a basement in general is just smart. Unfortunately, our house, we couldn't put a basement in because there was rock. There's a lot of rock, and they came in and said there's just no way. So, but having a good root cellar, plus in case there's a storm, especially like tornadoes, things like that, you can get possibly in there and protect yourself from, where a tree might fall through your house or the house just be decimated.
Victoria Schroeder says tips for EDC get home kits when having small children.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I did a video actually about kids, kind of a bug out kit, and it's according to their age and what they can handle. But the problem is a lot of times in situations you can get separated from your children. So you want to, if they're old enough, they're 6, 7, 8, where they can have a rain jacket and a bottle of water and some food, just a whistle maybe for signaling, just a few things to their age. And then of course, when they get up to be about 11 or 12, a good pocket knife, and just make sure that they're safe with it and take responsibility for it if they're able to. And then, just move it up to be able to, like a fire kit where they can build a fire. So, with really small children, it can be very difficult, and they're very dependent on you. So, but having some food put back, having some water, possibly even having something that could distract them, not necessarily a phone because they're all on their phones much too young of an age, but having something like a small game or something that you can play. And then maybe if according to their age, they could definitely do this at 5 or 6, is start to carry a small little backpack with a little rain jacket in it and a bottle of water and some kind of little bar in case so they can eat. Then again, if they get separated from you, which you need to really think about it, because we were at Disney World one year and our kids were really small, and we were sitting there in this big open area, and we're sitting on these benches, and the kids are way on the other side of the area. They're just playing, and there was nobody around. We could see them. What we didn't know was there was a venue that let loose right beside here. And all of a sudden, these doors open and thousands of people come pouring out. And all of a sudden, our kids they're gone. We can't see them. And of course, I got over there and it was fine and they were over there. But something can happen really quickly. So you want to kind of bring your kids into having some survival instincts until you can find them. Another thing, too, is very important is to have current photos of your kids, not just on your phone, but have some current photos of your kids. And that way, in case something happens and you're separated from them, you've got something to be able to go, hey, this is my daughter. This is my son. Have you seen them? And just according to the situation. But again, as the kids, whatever age they are and where they can handle, teach them that. If they can handle whatever, teach them that. Don't scare them. Don't make them afraid, but just in a survival mentality. And let them kind of be able to, as they grow older, to make it better for themselves. Okay, let's go to some more and then we'll come back. Flashlights. Now, a lot of us have a ton of flashlights, but having a good flashlight, we've been so many places where, people, like I've been to Airbnbs and there is a AA or a D-cell flashlight sitting there, and I get it, and the batteries are dead, or it's just a really inexpensive whatever. And a lot of times people in their homes, they don't really, especially in urban areas, they don't really depend on flashlights as much. But having good flashlights and having batteries or power or even rechargeable lights. Again, flashlights are great. It's your number one security tool. Light is your number one security tool. And it will shine, it illuminates the dark, you can see, but also it can be used as a self-defense option, and it can illuminate to where people are like, oh, I don't want to mess with them because they have a light. But flashlights are going to be, especially in a SHTF situation, having some kind of light, but you need to have light discipline as well. And that means you're not just shining it on turbo all the time and running your battery dead, or you're not just shining it and you're all around and then you're attracting people to it. You want to use it marginally, and sometimes you can use the ceiling, sometimes you can use the floor to reflect. And there's a whole thing on lights, which we're going to be doing some videos on that. But again, it makes a great defense tool as well, along with whatever else you have. Number 17 are just tools. And for one thing, especially if you have gardening tools, and I guess I'm going to get to that next, but having repair tools, being able to fix things, those things are going to be gone. Screwdrivers, hammers, saws, all that kind of stuff, a lot of times, that people may or may not have. Or people have them and they're saying, hey, I need to make sure I get this. I mean, we just had a hoe the other day that one of the boys was messing with, and it broke. Oh, well, they were killing something. And so when they went to use it, the hoe broke. And so, it's those things just happen. So actually making sure tools will get gone in a big hurry. And whether it's gardening tools, repair tools, automotive tools, whatever, because now instead of being able just to call somebody and go, hey, I need this fixed, you're going to have to fix it yourself. And if you have tools, then you're going to be a lot more able to take care of those things. You should always have, everybody should have a good small toolbox with just necessary items in it. Sometimes people don't. Number 18 is seeds, preferably non-hybrid seeds. And that means that when you plant, take that seed and you can plant it and it'll grow. Hybrid seeds bred, and so they don't reproduce. A lot of times when you get seeds, heirloom seeds or non-hybrid seeds are the ones you really should get. Now, they produce lower yields typically, and they're more susceptible sometimes to pests and all these kind of things. So, you got to weigh it out, maybe some of both, and to be able to get yourself in good shape. But those are going to dry up really fast. Seeds, gardening tools, different things that you're going to need for your garden. And that's another reason why you should have buckets, because when you want to haul your vegetables around, you've got buckets for that. Buckets are going to be a big deal. Buckets will go away really quickly because there's so many uses for buckets. And then number 20 is guns and ammo. Now, that is not really on the bottom of the list. That's not number 20, because we have seen this over and over and over. Ammunition just disappearing off the shelves. And then you see just the odd calibers. In fact, years ago when they had the first assault weapons ban, ammunition did that. It dried up. And what was funny is at the time, 40 caliber was always on the shelf. No 9mm, no 45, no 10mm, no 40 caliber was on the shelf. So I made sure that I always will have a 40 caliber handgun. I just do that. One thing that we talked about during the last shortage was having calibers, again, that people don't necessarily have, but it's a caliber that's on the shelf. I was in my local gun shop, and this girl comes in, and he didn't have, he did have some ammo, but it wasn't a whole lot. And the girl goes, hey, she said, I'm just checking. I just bought a handgun, and I don't have any ammo for it. And I think it was 40 caliber, come to think of it. And he said, we don't have any. And I thought, wow, here's this girl who went out and actually bought her a firearm and doesn't have ammo for it. Sooner or later, she can get some, but that's not a good thing. And that wasn't the pandemic was definitely one of those things. It was really weird, and it was an SHTF light, I call it. But guns and ammo still went off, just went. Right after Sandy Hook, same thing. Of course, it's happened over and over and over. One thing I do want to mention right now, especially with this in mind, is ammunition prices right now are lower than they've been in a long time. Because with Trump in office, a lot of people have been like, well, I guess I don't really, they've kind of lost their fear as much for maybe a revolution or maybe some kind of civil unrest or whatever. And so ammo prices, people aren't buying as much ammo. So the prices are coming way down. Now is the time to buy it. Now. At least buy, some boxes of ammunition. To me, my recommendation is minimum, bare minimum, you should have 1,000 rounds for whatever gun you have. Shotgun, maybe 250, but with your rifle, with your handgun, at least 1,000 rounds. What's 1,000 rounds of 9mm? Oh, that's about 350 bucks maybe. 5.56 or AR-15 ammunition is about 450, and I'm just throwing those numbers out. I don't even know, but these runs about like that. But getting that ammunition at least, and this is one thing that I've done, and this is one thing that I'm going to recommend for all this stuff. If there's some holes that you found or some things, you know, you're like, I really need to stock up on this. You don't have to go out and do it today. You can go out and you can buy a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's the way it is with prepping, guys. You don't have to go out and spend all your money. I know back in 2008 when we had our economic downturn and people were panicking. And really it's when I started my channel, my Suits channel, is there were people on there saying, take your credit card and go and max it out with survival supplies. Because when SHTF comes, then the banks will disappear or some kind of bull crap. Well, that was 16 years ago, and those people that did that, if anybody was dumb enough to do it, which there were some guys on YouTube saying they did it, they're probably still paying on that credit card. So don't go out and do something rash and dumb. Just go and say, you know what, I'm going to the grocery store today, and I'm going to pick up a couple of extra cans of whatever, Denny Moore beef stew, and I'm going to get a couple of bags of rice. And I'm going to pick up some lighters or candle or whatever. Or I'm going to go to my local sporting goods store and buy some water filters, or a camping store. Just buy a couple of things. It's the best way to just, and before long, it won't take long. All of a sudden you'll look over and you'll go, wow. You just have to stay diligent. And if you want to do it, don't ruin your life and spend every bit of the money you have and not go on vacation, because it makes us more balanced when we do that. It makes life just worth living. And that's the big thing, guys, is that a lot of people, when they get into the prepping world, and that becomes their hobby and it becomes their obsession. And then before long, you know, you're not just enjoying life. And so make sure that you take time to enjoy life. Okay, I believe it is 1 o'clock. I've just been told. Again, guys, a great book is The Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse. Link down below in the description. It is an affiliate link, but this is a great book. And also, fire kit. Guys, that should be one of the first things on your list. Fire kit. And again, matches, lighter, ferro rod, just have a good set of fire, and then have some tinder with it. Little tinder tabs are great, or Vaseline and cotton balls are great. Tinder is important. And you get 20% off using Suits 20 with the link down below for Exotac. And we really appreciate those guys for sponsoring our channel. Also, check out suitsgear.com. We have merch. We have stuff made in the USA, t-shirts made in the USA, and different patches and things like that. And also, we do a lot over there. I'll just leave it at that. Newsletters, do giveaways. We just do a lot over there. So check out suitsgear.com. And thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. And guys, you stay safe out there. Be strong. Be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.